Hi, this is Lori Owens, and you're watching the Best Practices Show live.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the Best Practice Show. We take a look at the best business practices from the best dental practices all over the world. And if you're involved in comprehensive dentistry, you already see this trend coming. It's the whole medical billing wave that's hitting dentistry. And I've got one of the world's experts on today, Lori Owens. You do not want to miss this. And she's going to take us through the 5 critical steps you need to understand about how this works. Now, couple show notes. We are shooting this live on Facebook right now as you see it. So if you have questions while we're in the broadcast, please add them to the feed and you'll see we'll get the answers straight from Lori directly while we have her on. Continue to add questions even after the live show is over, and you'll see Lori's a fabulous expert at social media. You always comment on like almost everything we do. I love it. I love it. So she'll get back to you because we want to make sure that you get the most out of this and apply it back into your practice. Also, just thank you again for all the suggestions and on guests and topics and things like that. And we're lining them all up. You're going to see a whole bunch of them over the next couple of weeks and months. Some of the best experts in all of dentistry. And thank you again for all the shares too. We're up over 39,000 followers on Facebook, and over 150,000 of you have visited us on iTunes. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, my guest today, Lori Owens, is, I call you our resident expert, on medical billing in dentistry. And I know you've been on the show many times before, but if somebody's watching this for the first time and they don't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about Lori Owens, who you are, what you do, and how important medical bill? Well, let's do you first, and then let's talk about how medical billing is so important in dentistry right now. All
right. Well, I've been in dentistry for 15 years. I've been medical billing in dentistry for 12 years. Self-taught at first, taking online courses, reading and reading and reading, back to the point where you didn't have internet, that we did it by fax. So I would fax claims for a coder to look at to see if I was close or if I was on target. Working for Dr. Michael Cohen and Dr. Robert Gottlieb at Implant and Periodontal Associates was by far the best experience of my life. Still love all of them there, and working with Imagine Solutions now as the Director of Medical Billing Education, and being able to share how the tricks, what you need, things to have, questions to ask. And it's been amazing to see the lives that get changed and healthy patients versus people that were very unhealthy prior. And it's an avenue that most people think is too hard to explore. Whereas if you have determination and you have a desire to help your patients, it is not hard. I find it like those hidden pictures. Do you know the hidden pictures that kids do? Mm-hmm. That's what medical billing is. You're looking for the hidden pictures. You're looking for the hidden things that are complicating their life as well as their health. And that's what we want to do, is be able to get the benefits that they already pay for, maximize those to the best of our ability. Yeah. So medical billing is not just a passion, but you can see lives change. Yeah. So it's an amazing thing.
Yeah, and this is something that's going to go away. You and I talked about this last time. Everything's going to be eventually a medical code, and you agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%. I've spoken with a lot of other billers, coders in dentistry as well as not in dentistry. In the medical field, I was speaking to one on Wednesday night, and she said, I can see how this is not going to be a dental issue. Right. And this is coming from somebody who has nothing to do with the dental field. Right. She is an absolute professional coder. I took the certification for coding and billing because I want to make sure I'm relevant in every area and let people know this is not just a fun habit. it's something I really believe in, and I truly believe it can help offices.
Right now, I want to just speak to this too. If you're a young dentist and you're watching this, this isn't about how you ramp up more dental insurance. Medical billing or in the coding thing, we have a lot of fee-for-service dentists using this system, learning it in and out, and they're getting medical reimbursement for dental cases they otherwise would not. Am I correct in saying that?
Absolutely. And it goes back to, you're not giving them teeth.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things we teach when we train. You're not giving them teeth. You're reconstructing arches that were normally there and functionable, and now they're not.
Right.
So you are taking the maxillary and the mandibular arches and you're reconstructing them. They know that because you're doing an arch, there are teeth involved,
right.
But they don't want you to say the teeth word. They want you to tell them, what are you doing to make that the way it used to be?
Right.
That's
because if you can tell the story through the codes, Absolutely. That's the key here. And then knowing the ins and outs. And today you're going to take us through the 5 steps of how to do it, which I absolutely love. So take us through this. So if I'm going to start on this journey, there's 5 critical steps. And what's the first maybe piece on our checklist?
The first piece is collect all medical insurance cards. One thing to say is, our doctor wants to make sure that if there's part of your medical insurance that we can maximize benefits on, that we have the information necessary to do so. So if somebody says, why do you want my insurance card? That's what we would tell them. That way they know that we are comprehensive. We're looking for your health, not for your dental insurance. We're looking to maximize every benefit that we can for you, and even if that's accessing your medical insurance to do so. So it gives them the understanding that you're a comprehensive dentist and you're looking for something that might fall into the realm of medical insurance. Mm-hmm. And so once you collect those cards, you start to know what kind of insurances you're working with. And like I told you before, if you collect cards and you find 80% of them are Medicare patients, maybe you should think about getting into being a Medicare provider, because they do provide coverage for bone graft, basically reconstructing the arch with bone. They will pay for that. So maybe that's an avenue that you should get into. But if 50% of that 80% has a full secondary policy, in other words, they retired from Bank of America or Boeing or something like that, and they provide them a full medical policy beyond the Medicare, that you can access those benefits without having to be a Medicare provider.
Right.
So that makes the difference in knowing when they give you, and most retired people will know they automatically give you both cards.
Yeah.
It says it right on the front.
Yeah, and you can see easily how this is a step that's easily skipped over by almost every dental office in this process. Right.
And that's why using the phrase, if there's a procedure that we can maximize your benefits through medical, we want to have the information available to do so. So you're not promising them anything. You're telling them that we're looking at every avenue to help you.
That is outstanding. What's step number 2?
Step number 2, this is going to be where we're going to take that dental code and we're going to translate it into a medical procedure code. People think, oh no, there's thousands and thousands of codes. Yes, but in dentistry, there's about 20 to 30. That's it. We have more in our dental codes than we do in our medical codes that correlate. So you're not going to have to memorize thousands of codes. There's about 20 to 30 that every practice usually does on a usual basis. So there's not a huge difference. It's 5 digits for dental, 5 digits for medical. It's not a huge cross. And most of the medical codes can be found. So It's not like they're hiding from you.
Right. And if you haven't watched Lori's previous interviews, please watch them because she has the most wonderful cheat sheet, which I use, and I've got it laminated right next to me. And you update it on a yearly basis so that it's really quick and easy in a reference sheet. And you're talking 20 to 30 codes, which isn't a big task for a lot of different people. And it's very, very important. Now, you and I were talking about this. Let's talk about the 21248 code. That's important to know. This is a great example of how you can use this once you know the codes, right?
Exactly. So if you're doing a D6010, which is an implant, and you want to figure out, oh, how does that relate medically? Well, that's a 21248. There's not a variation, but here's the trick. The 21248 on the medical side includes the abutment. So if you are doing an implant and you're going to come back 3 months or 6 months later to do the abutment, you bill both the same code. They're just different pieces that comprise that one code. So you have the dental implant that you're doing, and then the abutment that goes on top of it once they're done healing. So it's the same code. You don't have to know another code. All you have to do is make sure your fees are in line with the fees you charge for dental.
Yeah, and you can charge your whole fee, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no UCR in this. There's none of that. You're going to bill out your whole fee for this. Now, let's also add some very good context to this. This is not an easy process. You're not just, Lori, you've helped me with each one of these. You're not just going to enter this code and everyone's going to go, yeah, here's a check. It's on the way. You've got to get ready for the arduous process that's in between you telling the story and getting the reimbursement, correct?
Exactly. And you have to remember that the medical insurance companies, if you've not billed medical, they're not used to knowing what you're doing.
Right.
So you need to say, hey, we are providing medical services for patients and we want you to add our NPI number to your provider list. So you're not saying, hey, I want you to approve every claim that comes through, even though that would be great.
Right.
But they can't do that. But they can get notification that you are providing medical services and you want your doctor's NPI number added to the provider list. So that way you have less of a fight once your claim gets to that medical insurance. And again, how are you going to know what medical insurance companies you're dealing with until you collect the cards?
Right. Now, the question comes up, 20 to 30 codes. This is something that you really do want the dentist very well educated on and the rest of the team. This isn't just something as a dentist, you're just going to throw this at a front desk team member because clinically you got to be able to tell the story. So both of you have to be able to communicate in order for this to work.
Absolutely. And that's why we have number 5, which is training.
Right.
So we're not to the rest of them yet, but number 5 is training. Doctors, I love doctors in courses or at on-sites. Every time I go to an on-site, I tell them the doctor has to be there. Because if the doctor doesn't know what the team is looking at and doesn't know what the biller has to go through, how on earth is he going to be able to facilitate the need of to make sure the documentation supports the diagnosis?
It won't.
He can't.
Yeah.
And so that's why the doctors are so important. People say, well, the hygienist doesn't need to be there. Really? Well, the hygienist is so clinically minded, they can prep the doctor so that they can get most of those clinical notes done correctly. But if the hygienist doesn't know either, how is that going to flow? Whereas what about the assistant? The assistant's the one who's usually making the notes. If they don't know they have to specify this was an accident case and put that in the notes, you're never going to get paid on an accident because the notes weren't made. It just has to say either maybe accident, see attached accident report. That's all they have to do. But if they don't know they have to do it, it won't work. So everybody on the same page is huge. And yes, it costs some money. But how much more is the benefit of what you do? Say, for instance, we did a $61,000 case. Do you know how much we got reimbursed from medical?
How much?
$1,000.
Wow.
So it wasn't because Lori billed it. It was because everybody on board at our staff knew what to do and what to look for. That's what got paid. So it's not a Lori show. It has to be your whole staff. And it might take $2,000 or $3,000 of training, but is it worth it to get a $48,000 check?
Absolutely. Well, and the biggest benefit is the patient wins when you're allowed to be able to do your optimal care at your optimal fee. Let's just go right there,
Right. So you figure if you have a $61,000 treatment plan and they have $2,000 in dental benefits, that patient has to come up with $59,000. I don't have $59,000 in my back pocket.
Right.
And if not, this patient was sick.
Yeah.
I mean, he was sick. And he was not going to get better without oral care. And this was the best option. But this is one of the kickers, Kurt. Do you know why he came to us?
Why? Because
he heard what we did for a friend of his.
Wow. Isn't that cool?
He was referred somewhere else, but he heard what we did for a friend of his. And that's how we ended up being able to treat him.
Yeah.
We did no marketing.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's still a people business. I don't care how much you talk about teeth. It's a people business. Now, the third step in this process is critical because without it, none of this works. What's number 3?
You have to know the why. Why is this a medical case? Do they have 6 points of caries after a 6-month recall, and now all of a sudden you found out they have diabetes? Well, they have diabetes, and that's probably lending to some perio and possibly dry mouth from that medication that they just started maybe 5 months ago or so. And that's the why. They are now diabetic with perio, and they have xerostomia.
Right.
That's a why. That's a great why.
Yeah, and you and I talked about this last time, and this is a great stat. How many of your patients come in with dry mouth that is because of the medications what you gave me the percentage last time. How many patients come in on an average?
I would say 80 to 90%.
80 to 90% of patients come in with dry mouth because of some type of medication, which ultimately creates a cause for something else.
Right. Yes. They call it a comorbidity. That's the lending to cause. So we would tell the story that they have Sojourn's disease and dry mouth, and now they have caries to the dentin.
Yeah.
So does that tell your story? Absolutely. They have Sojourn's. That they know the why. What did Sojourn's cause? It caused dry mouth. And what did the dry mouth cause? It caused caries on to the dentin.
Right.
That tells your story right there. It's a causality. You're taking what you did, which was you fixed the tooth to the dentin. Why did you do it? The xerostomia, because of the Sojourn's disease. So you can tell it both ways, and it still makes sense.
Right. Now, we've talked about this, but tell us why medical insurance, and even though we've talked a little bit about it today, tell us why medical insurance is going to pay for this. Because I'm sitting here listening to this. If I'm a dentist, I'm like, come on, why would they do that? Tell us why.
Tell me, one question I would ask them is, would they be having the same kind of oral problems or complications if it wasn't for this disease?
No.
If they didn't have this disease, okay, so why would you think that this is a dental issue? There is nothing that person could have done to prevent it. Nothing. They could have brushed 4 times a day, flossed 3 times a day, and still would have all of those points of caries.
That's so true.
There's nothing they can do. Yeah. So think about it that way. Now, if you have a patient walk in and they haven't brushed their teeth for about 6 months, and they haven't gone to a dentist for about 10 years, how can you relate a causality when it has to do with behavior?
Right. That's subjective.
Exactly. So that's the difference between what you believe is a medical case and what would be a shot in the dark.
Right. Right. That is so powerful. Now, you're going to get better at the why the more you do this. The first couple times you do it, even when you took me through it, I'm not the fastest learner, but after a couple times I'm like, oh, there's you kind of get a sense of how this works. Right. But when we move on to step number 4, once you establish the why, now you're going to have to do something very important with the procedure codes. What is it? So
what I did was I created, it's called the Patient Medical Billing Form, and we will go over how to get it at the end. But we have a list of the ICD-10 codes, and it goes from A all the way to H. And so you're just going to list them. So we talked earlier. So Kurt, if you have a hangnail and I code that you have a hangnail because it was part of your health history.
Okay.
What would that have to do with your oral cavity?
Nothing.
So would I be able to use it as part of your comorbidities?
No. I don't know.
It has nothing to do with the treatment, and it has nothing to do with the cause of why it happened.
Right.
It might be a fact that that's what you have, absolutely, but you have to make sure your claim makes sense. You can't say if you have hairy arms, what does that have to do with what you're doing in the oral cavity?
Right.
It might be an absolute fact, but it doesn't mean that it applies to what you're doing in the oral cavity. So making sure it makes sense is huge. So we have it to where you can write out all those codes. And as you say the definitions or the meanings of those codes, like partial loss of teeth due to trauma, what would you think might be another code that you have to explain? What the trauma was.
Right.
Pretty simple on that. And if you don't put what the trauma was, they're going to reject it because you've told them now that they have a partial loss of teeth due to trauma, but you have to give them what the trauma was. Whether it was being headbutted by your child or whether it was you ran into a door, whatever it is, there's going to be a code for that. I know I make fun, but there is a code for everything.
Really?
So there is a code for problems with your in-laws. There is
You're
a code
kidding. There is not. Is there really?
There is a code for problems with your in-laws. There's a code for being hit by lightning on skis twice. So there is a code for everything. And so I tell people, go to icd10data.com, free. It's free. You can type in every scenario. If you type fall from the sidewalk, it'll give you all the codes that have to deal with fall from a sidewalk. It's free. You don't have to pay for it. You don't believe me? Go to it and look it up yourself. You can find out anything you want because the codes, the diagnosis codes, I don't own them, but they are put out by the AMA and they're there for you to research. Yeah. So we put the codes here. We put the procedure codes here. When you read them back to yourself, make sure they make sense. If you say partial loss of teeth due to trauma, well, because he was hit in the mouth while playing football. Does that make sense in a story?
Yes, it does. Now, in what we're really talking about in step number 4, is the logical order of the procedure codes. It has to make sense.
Right.
And it go in sequential. Does it have to go in sequential or more narrative? Does it matter?
No, it's just an A, B, C. So if say, for instance, in box A, I put the code for partial loss of teeth due to trauma. Okay. Box B, I put being hit in the mouth. And box C, I put playing football. If I put in my pointer and I'm telling them which code is the most important for that service line, if I put that he was playing football, is that going to make sense to them on why we did treatment?
No, not at all.
So what did we do? We did a partial loss of teeth due to trauma. That trauma was he got hit in the mouth because he was playing football. So it's exactly telling the story that way. So I would put on that service line for maybe the implant A, B, C. Yeah. And that's where I'm telling them to look.
Yeah, I'm just going to pause and say this to our viewers. Do you see why we have to have somebody as amazing as Lori? Because this stuff is just way too exhausting for me to even contemplate. And the cool thing about Lori's stuff is all of it is templated. Like you just follow the boxes and you check the boxes and you go in order and it's amazing. So like if you're watching this, download our forms. They are so easy to use and you're going to find, oh my goodness, like it makes sense.
Right. And that's the goal is that we can't diagnose your patients at Imagined Solutions at all. We can't. It's by law, it has to be your practice. But knowing what to look for is half the battle. What questions, Kurt, would you ask if somebody says, I have a family history of diabetes?
Yeah, well, you're gonna start asking oral health questions right away and causality, type 1, type 2. And like I'm having recall now, anytime you have any type of an insurance claim whatsoever, even if it's the littlest thing, the first question is, was this an accident? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's very interesting how it works in the other realm. But yes, I mean, when you talk about diabetes, everything goes back to the oral cavity on this because of the causality factor, and it's huge in this. Yeah.
And that's the goal, is that when you do send your staff for training, or you are going to training, you get all of these. You get them digitally. So if you want to change them for your practice, you can. They're not PDFs, they're changeable forms. So, but I only do that for somebody who gets trained, because I can't help you unless you get training. I can do a little bit and try to be specific with you on the show so that people know that I mean, like I said, I'm not the only trainer out there. I don't want them to think that come see me or nothing. I don't believe that. I believe that you need to get trained by somebody.
Right.
So we want to make sure that you have training, because that's the only way you can be successful, is that if you have somebody that would stand by your side to help you.
Right.
And that's what we want to do. So creating these forms is a help, but you need to also know how to use them, as well as, how to make sure what to look for. If your staff has no idea what to look for, oh my word, they're just going to be throwing everything at you and say, oh, this patient was bit by a dog.
Right.
Okay, but what happened? Did they fall? Did they get hit? That's what we need to know. And asking those questions, your front desk can't do that. That has to come from somebody clinical, because the front desk is not a clinical team member. They are the administrative team. And we need to remember that, we can't all be everything to everybody. And we have to work as a team together. And once we know what the assistant's part is, and the hygiene's part is, and the doctor's part is, it really does flow together. And it really is amazing. And I love seeing the way the team works together.
Yeah.
And that, I would say, you see what the patient's result is. You get a patient that is overjoyed, that goes and tells everybody, did I get 100% off of that patient? No. But he got 80% paid from treatment, and now he is so much healthier. And he can do things, and he doesn't have infection, and he doesn't, it's amazing. It's made so many things turn around for this young man.
Hey, and Lori, we just lost you for a second. Are you back, Lori? Lori, we lost you there, but here, let me go back. So Ben, I'll wrap it up, and if Lori jumps on, we can have her just jump right back on. For some reason we lost Lori's feed. I'm just going to go back through it. If you guys were watching this, it's fabulous. Lori took us through the 5 steps. Is number 1, you want to be able to collect their cards. Number 2, you've got to be able to have the system or the medical billing form, and there's only 20 to 30 codes. And then number 3, you want to be able to articulate the why. Number 4, the order of the procedure codes. And then 5, we obviously need training. So Lori's forms are awesome, and we're going to actually ask her to post a link to that in here so that you guys can take a look at it. Make sure you check out her other videos that she has done previously with us, and it's a fantastic, incredible resource. So I don't know, Ben, are we still live or are we off? I can't tell. Still live. That's okay. We'll wrap up because I know we all have a hard stop here just in a few minutes, but I'll just say this. Lori, thank you so much for being on in case you're watching this. And thank you guys for watching this. If you enjoyed today, just do us a favor, hit the share button, share with your friends. And until we see you next time, keep watching the Best Practices Show. You guys have a great rest of your day.